Welcome to Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Brought to you by our title sponsor, Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Come along with us as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. We have partnered with Mountain Tough Fitness Lab to help get you in shape and mentally stronger. Whether you're a veteran hunter or just starting out, the Mountain Tough app will take you to the next level. We personally train using the Mountain Tough programs, and we believe in it so much that we want to give you 6 weeks for free using code SHEEPBC. That's SHEEPBC. Check out Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. You won't be disappointed. Hello, everybody. Episode 201 of Talk is Sheep. Welcome. And today we are sitting down with Greg Sawchuck. Greg is the secretary for the Big Game Records Club of British Columbia. He's currently serving on the national board of the Ducks Unlimited. And he's served for numerous conservation organizations over the years. We dig into all that today. Greg's an inspiration, to be frank. He's done a ton of work for conservation, and someone that I certainly look up to and respect for what he's done in the past and what he continues to do. He's given a lot back for a long time. So you're going to enjoy this one. We talk about a lot of things with Greg here, including all the sheep he's taken. He's done some amazing hunts. He's got some book sheep out there and other species as well. We recorded this in the comfort of Greg's, I think he called it his wife's sewing room, but it was definitely a game room of some sort. And then after the podcast, we go downstairs and we check out what he's got in the basement, and just jaw-dropping, to be frank. So great podcast with Greg. Just for our members and supporters, just want to put a reminder out there that our Magnificent 7 rifle raffle is ongoing, and we have about 6 weeks left on that. The entire prize package was worth over $86,000. Grand prize is a Gunworks firearm, absolutely stunning, tricked out with the latest and greatest. We partner up with Precision Optics on this. Omer underwrote this with some industry support. So let's support that raffle. We'll have the link in the show notes here, and do what we can to support our conservation efforts. The money from this raffle goes directly to conservation efforts in British Columbia. That's how we fund what we do. So I don't think you can go wrong, and you got 6 chances to win. And actually, if you just buy one ticket, you get a chance in all 6. So if you win one, your name goes back in the draw. But unfortunately, for those that are listening from out of province, you cannot enter if you're not from in British Columbia at the time of purchase. You can be from elsewhere, but you have to buy the ticket in BC. So again, we don't make the rules; we just have to abide by them. But anyone that can buy tickets, we'd appreciate it, and it's so important to the work we do here. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Yeti. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Yeti, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems. Good, but well, Greg, have to say this is first of all, it's really cool. It's 10 minutes from my house, so I can drive down and chat with you. And then you walk in here, and you said this is, I think you said it's your wife's sewing room, but it doesn't look like a sewing room to me.
Well, it's my I use it for my man cave, I guess you might say, and I watch hockey games and ball games and stuff whatnot here. Yeah, it's an enjoyable place because you look at the trophies that are here and mounted, and I appreciate it because you can reminisce with a hunt and say, oh yeah, I remember that where we did that, and had a hunt with friends and whatnot. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to get a few limited entries and special draws. That's, people say I'm awful lucky. Well, I buy the right ones at the right time, I guess, and it's better than buying lottery tickets. Lottery tickets, the odds are so high. These are, generally quite a bit lower. So, yeah.
Well, and, I do find that the people that are buying the tickets are the one that are winning them. There are the odd time where a guy will buy one ticket, but I know you put in a lot of tickets, and I've had the phone calls from you to buy extra tickets and that. So I know you support. And the cool thing about these conservation lotteries is it's all going to a good cause, right? We're supporting wildlife.
Absolutely. And one of the draws in particular, the Premier's Ram, I was involved, or still am involved, with how the money's allocated, and knowing the money's going to a good cause, and So I'm thinking, hey, there's an opportunity to buy a ticket. It goes to conservation, and yet you do have a chance to win. And most people, I don't know, they don't seem to buy them as much as they should. So, I'm talking about resident hunters, and because the odds are 1,700 to 1 or something, but that's pretty low odds compared to buying lottery tickets. So, and their money does go into a good cause.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So, Greg, I want to talk to you today about conservation because you do so much in the conservation community and involved in a bunch of organizations. You've been involved with the Wild Sheep Society of BC, Wild Sheep Foundation, but most recently a lot of work with the Big Game Records of BC and, of course, Ducks Unlimited. I want to talk about all that, but I want to talk a little bit about kind of your hunting. And I know you're retired now. You don't look like you're retired because you're busier than one of the most busy people I know, but maybe just talk a little bit. Did you grow up with a hunting ethic? Was that in the family? Did you grow up with your dad hunting, or how did you get involved in it?
Yeah, my dad hunted local deer. He hunted black-tailed deer on Vancouver Island, and mainly as a food source, like most of us started out as. And I still do that as a food source, but I do enjoy, having, take a big game animal. It's a mature animal. I don't have a problem with passing them up, and I think it's a healthy style of hunting. It's a safer style. The guys that they use the word trophy hunting. Well, it's a poor analogy. You're looking for a mature animal, and let's use sheep as an example. You're taking a mature ram that's, say, I've got some that are 12 and 13 years old. They're only going to maybe live one more year, and so you're taking them at the height of their career, and they've produced a lot of other sheep in along the way, and it's just a good aspect of it versus taking a smaller ram hasn't produced like it would do if it was left to live longer, and that's why in the those that are involved in the Society for Sheep in British Columbia and Wild Sheep Foundation to advocate that we take more mature rams if you can. I mean, I know everybody wants one, but you feel better about passing one up that might be legal, right? The first one I ever saw, I was caribou hunting, and there was a ram standing there, and I could not make it what I wanted it to make it. And in my mind's eye, I know it was legal now, but I passed it up, and I felt better about it, and waited till I got a more mature ram. And you feel proud to do that. So yeah, that's part of it, in the conservation end of it. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I think you hunted a number of years before you took a ram. Like you were sheep hunting, but you never did.
Yeah. So back to the first question. I sort of got off topic there, but my dad took me deer hunting, of course, on Vancouver Island where I grew up, and then I knew he'd gone moose hunting when I was very young, and I always wanted to go. So he took me in grade 11 and 12 up to the Prince George area, and enjoyed that trip, moose hunting. Never got an opportunity to do it till later in life when I got my business rolling and I was in school and whatnot. But I certainly enjoy moose hunting, and then I got into more exotic species, I guess you might call them. We went on a fly-in trip the first time. I think it was in the mid-'80s, 1980s, for caribou, and we had a great trip and flew into a lake, and we got 3 nice caribou and a goat. So it was a great hunt. And I also remember the pilot. He saw we'd taken a bit of beer and he thought, oh yeah, it's the same as the crowd that he takes into another lake just beside us, and all they do is sit and drink beer. Well, we had a heck of a time using it all because we were hiking all day, and you come back and you're so tired, you have a beer or two and you go to sleep. I mean, I think it was the last morning we weren't packing it out. So yeah. But anyways, we found that you didn't really need to take much alcohol along, and that's what we've generally done. I've just take a small Mickey or something like that, just have a hot drink maybe at the end of the day. That's and that only lasts for 2 or 3 days. But anyways, it's a good part of the hunting career. Yeah, and so we hunted on Vancouver Island, then started going in my later life. I call it later because I was in my 40s when I really started getting into hunting sheep and whatnot. And I hunted 9 years. When 9 times I went, and on the 10th time I ended up I got a ram. It was on a limited entry hunt. I'd actually applied for junction sheep, which where there was a permit there then in those days, several permits, and got lucky enough to get drawn. And I think it's on day 9 I took a nice ram, and I passed up one that it turned out to be very legal, but I had one in my mind I wanted, and I worked on it and finally got it. Yeah, it was really good. And then lucky after that, I went to Wild Sheep Foundation. Well, it was called FNAWS in those days, Foundation for North American Wild Sheep, in 1996, and that was in Reno. And I really enjoyed the convention. And in 1997, they decided to go to Philadelphia for a convention. So I thought, hey, what's an opportunity? So my wife and I flew out to Philadelphia, and we had a great convention. And I bought a life membership, and it was. I really liked the organization, like the conservation aspect of it, and how they were putting more sheep on the mountain. And so that was a good way to support them. So I bought it, and actually, I guess I wasn't paying attention, but part of the promotion for the life membership was they had a Doll sheep hunt in Alaska donated by Ptarmigan Lake Outfitters, which is owned by Urban Rahoy. And Urban donated it, and I ended up winning it. So in 1997, I got to go to Alaska, and I got a doll. So that was great. And I kept going, of course. I liked what Bernie Fiddledy had with the One More for Four. And I knew Bernie, and I thought that's a pretty neat thing he's doing. So I'd always make sure I was there. I always remember one time I was at the banquet, and they drew the tag, and they said, the person's from Canada. And I thought, right on. I got a real good chance, because I looked around the room, and I only knew about 20 guys that had were in the had 3/4 slam. Yeah. And he wasn't there. It was a gentleman that was from northern British Columbia, but he wasn't there, so they drew again. And I thought, here, I got a really good chance now. But no, it didn't happen that time. But it was only shortly after that I got drawn. Actually, luckily enough, I started putting in. A good friend of mine out of Sawasan suggested I should be putting in the States, and I wasn't familiar with the limited entries they had in the States, and he got me going on it, and started putting in different states, and I'd be darned if I didn't get drawn in Nevada. Actually, after 9 years, which was quite low, but I had friends that give me recommendations of what unit to put in, and it was worked out extremely well. So I was lucky enough to get a desert. And
let's talk a little bit about that one, because we were talking about it before we were live here. But you were talking that you had a bigger ram, and I think you were hunting with Clint Bentley.
Yeah. So Clint Bentley, a friend of mine, he did a lot of hunting with Ron Fleming. Yeah. And I met him through Ron, and a real nice fellow. And so I'd always kept touch with him, and he was the one that actually helped me on some areas that put in. And I also knew Tommy Ford, and I'd hunted with Tommy, and actually he came up and hunted Roosevelt elk on Vancouver Island, and I was lucky enough to be there when Tommy was there. And another gentleman out of Vegas also, unfortunately passed away. He'd come up Roosevelt elk hunting, and he lived in Henderson, which is a suburb, as you know, and had run a nice shop there, a gun shop, and he was hunting in Africa, and got, unfortunately got malaria. But anyways, so the three of them were, once I got the draw, they were going to help me out, which is great, and I really wanted to do that. But what I discovered was, guys, it happens in our lives, you get busy at something, business gets in the way or whatever. So I contacted an outfitter. There are several outfitters that contacted me, actually. Their system is a little different down there. The names were identified on who had the draws, And so I got phoned by two gentlemen, and so I checked them out with my friends, with Clint and Tommy and whatnot. They said, well, he's a really good outfitter, so if you want to go with one, consider him. So I phoned him up. And I said, I got this draw. I'd like to hunt with my friends, and he knew I was hunting with, and I said, but I don't want to, this is probably once in a lifetime, or will be probably a once in a lifetime thing, and I don't want it to foul up. So I said, what would it cost me to have you as a backup? And so he gave me a number which was really quite reasonable. So I immediately sent him the money, and because I thought, well, if we hunted a few days and nothing was happening, I got somebody that I can rely on that's in the business. Not that well, Clint's certainly in the business. He knows the area really well, but he did get busy, and he came out with this the day I did get my ram. But of course, the outfitter wasn't. He started spotting right away, and just as I was leaving home, we were driving down, leaving British Columbia, and my phone rang, and he says, "You better get down here. We spotted a ram between 171 and 172." I thought, holy cow, this is really something. But I really didn't want it to happen that quick, like not the first day. It's something you want to stretch out a little bit, have an enjoyable hunt out of it. So we get down there the day before the season. We went out early in the morning just to spot, and sure enough, there's the ram, and he was in a spot, and I thought, this is not what I really want. I mean, it's nice to get a nice ram, but I want to have it where, you got to work at it a little bit. Well, be darned if the next morning when the season opened, we're standing in an area just at the boundary of my area, and I seen in the darkness something cross the road that we were standing on, waiting to walk into to where we were hunting. And I said, I think I just saw something go across the road, and it got daylight, and sure enough, here's this 172 ram, and another ram had already walked about 300 yards up on the side hill, and they were in a no hunting area. And so I thought, well, that's positive in one sense, because it wouldn't be much enjoyable just to we walk off the road 100 yards and there's a ram. Not a great experience, right? And so we watched him for 5 days.
Wow.
He got up on a mesa, and we could get into different positions, and we could see him on occasion. And we're hoping he would work his way back. And he did on the 5th day. He started working his way towards my area. And I got into my area. We're standing and waiting. And he worked along. And then he got wind of there was a hot ewe in a different area across the road, the main dividing road. And he decided to leave and went to that area. We tried to go in there and herd them back, but there's no herding, not when they're not when there's a hot ewe out there. Yeah. So we went back to hunt the area that I was my particular area, and Clint was with me that day, and he says, you're passing up a ram there that you've seen it several times, and it's a buck ram. He says, if I were you, I'd be thinking about taking it before, there's other hunters in this area, and they might spot it. And so I took his advice, and it ended up it got a 168 and 2/8.
Nice.
And the reason I said the other one was 171, 172 is the outfitter, he was a pretty good judge, because he told me, so that scores about 167, 168, and knowing that it was book. And when I took it, it was just made it over 168 there. So again, a Boone and Crockett ram, and the other one was probably 171, but it just wouldn't cooperate and come back into the area where I needed him. But it was a great hunt. We saw the neat thing about it. I took the indoctrination course, and we don't have that here in British Columbia, but it was a 4-hour course. And the beauty of it is they go through basic sheep biology, and if you take the course, you're actually allowed to hunt without an outfitter down in Nevada. And not that I needed it, but I thought, well, if for whatever reason, say there's something happened where the outfitter had to leave for a few hours, you could still be out there wandering around and be legal, right? Mm-hmm. Here in British Columbia, you can't do that. You have to stay with the outfitter. So anyways, it was a good real course, and part of the course was they wanted you to document what sheep you saw. So my partner and I, we every day we'd record what we saw, and we saw 150 sheep.
Wow.
And out of those, there was 50 rams. Now, when we say a ram, anything that's bigger than a ewe.
Right.
That, it would be a banana ram or whatever. But we saw 50 rams. But out of the 50, there was, I would say, 8 to 10 that you'd be quite happy with. And so, there was a good stock of sheep there, really good supply. I was quite impressed, and it was good to report what we saw. And it was only 5-day hunt. I had 10 days to do it, but I did get it on the 5th day.
Right.
And then the outfitter was really good. He took me to other, we saw more sheep and toured around, went to a nice taxidermist and got my ram mounted down in Nevada because they, of course, they're familiar with that species there and worked out really well. Plus, it gave me an excuse to drive down with my wife to pick it up later. So do a little touring. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's quite a nice trophy to have on the wall there. And I did a pedestal wall mount, and it looks really good.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous ram. Just so heavy and so thick and like high up, and beautiful. Yeah. And then so you go down the wall here. So there's your doll that from Alaska, and then you get the stone sheep. Now I think you said you were on a hunt, and your son got his sheep before you. He was a young guy. You didn't even get a chance. You hadn't even thought of sheep hunt at that point.
Yeah, my son was 15 years old at the time, and I'd planned a stone sheep hunt, and of course, I'm putting in for limited entry, and in those days I was putting in for the Junction area, which is out of the junction of the Chilcotin River and the Fraser River. And a lot of sheep transplants occurred out of there. There was a good population. Unfortunately, the population's dropped off now, and I don't believe there's a limited entry in there anymore, which is positive because the population was really good when I got that ram in, what year was that? It would be, 1996, I guess it was, yeah. And so I planned this hunt with my brother-in-law and my son and a friend out of the Kootenays. And so I said, well, we'll go anyways, even though I'd drawn a California bighorn draw that year. And I could only take one sheep in British Columbia, and I still enjoy going. So away we go, and I took my son up a mountain after we trailed in with horses. And we walked in over another range, and I heard some noises in the valley below me, or just below us, and rocks rolling. Well, like, I guess being a bit of an amateur, I wasn't really familiar with them, doing headbutts, and then I spotted them. So we had to sneak downhill in a trench, and I got right at the same elevation of them, and I confirmed. I said, that one's a really nice, stone sheep. So I said, you better take it. So my son, he got a sheep before I did. But later in that year, I went on the California hunt, and there's 9 days I took there, and had a great hunt. Passed up another ram. It was actually would have scored. It was maybe a little heavier, but it didn't have the curl I wanted, and so I one in particular, I'd hunted that one on day 4 and got really close to him on the 4th day, but he gave us the slip, and of course it's in the breaks of the river there, and they go down over the breaks, and it's quite hard to get at them. But I learned a lot on that hunt, and then after that the next year I bought, as mentioned, the doll sheep hunt, and I got that from Wild Sheep Foundation in a draw, and of course I was after a stone still, and every year would go stone sheep hunting, and again learning by yourself. I mean, you get some tips and whatnot, but you don't. It's not like you're guided, right? So it's much more difficult to try and get a self-guided one. It's a lot of dry trips where you don't even see a sheep. I went one trip with my son. I flew into a lake, and we saw, I remember, 256 different sheep.
Oh wow!
And most of them ewes and lambs.
Yeah. And
I'm not counting the same ones that, I saw 23 in a bunch, and then you'd see them again the next day. You'd see the same 23. I wasn't counting them twice.
Wow.
I was counting, but out of those 256 we saw, I think there was only 7 rams, and none of them were legal. So it was a great, obviously, great ewe area, good breeding area. Obviously the rams were on a different mountain, and I couldn't find it. But we had a great trip, never fired a shot, and spent 2 weeks in there, and saw really nice caribou. It gave us the slip. Seen grizzly bears on 2 different occasions. Saw with 2 cubs each time. and what else? We saw moose, of course, but it was a wonderful time and enjoyable, especially when you got your your son with you to enjoy it too. You'll never forget it. I remember coming home. My mom, of course, she knew what that my dad always hunted and whatnot, and he was supplying food for the table and whatnot. And she said, "Well, how'd you make out?" And I said, "Well, we never fired a shot." She said, "We went all that way and never fired a shot." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But it was a fabulous trip. It's probably one of the best ones ever made." Just because you get to enjoy the climate and being out there and doing the hard hiking and whatnot. So yeah, it's a real benefit to do it, and the value of doing it yourself when you do a self-guided hunt is really gives you a great feeling about it. The fact that you've produced. Now, a lot of the rams I got are not like they're not top notch or everybody would like a bigger one, but there's something key in the fact that you did it yourself and got a ram that was legal and
but there's no squeakers. There's no 6-year-olds. There's no. They're all mature, good, beautiful rams and full curl. And like you mentioned, your first California was not the biggest one of the bunch, but it's still a beautiful ram and still a really solid ram. And like your doll's incredible. That stone is just insane. And desert. And then I can't wait. We're going to get into that in a second here, but to hear your story of Rocky, because that thing's that thing is amazing. Book ram there. So.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to get. I was elated, mind you. I bought a lot of tickets, so I kept doing that. I did it for quite a few years.
Right.
I'd buy a good variety of tickets. They're $15 a piece. There's 15 plus whatever taxes on it. But when you spend a little bit of money on it, it's an inexpensive way compared to what you'd pay for, to buy a permit, like especially nowadays.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the best, I guess, minister's permit or whatever permit you want to call it that you can get, because there's just not a lot of tickets sold and tags sold or tickets sold in BC on it. So it's really, really good odds. So if you're dumping a bunch of numbers in there, you're going to have really good odds of getting something. So.
Right. And like I said earlier, it's, goes to conservation. And I was lucky enough to see where the money's getting spent wisely and whatnot. Mm-hmm. We just do it as volunteers. The biologists, we have a group and that are experts in the field, technical review committee that give us recommendations, and we just try and pick the best projects that are available. That's where your HCTF money goes. It's a lot of fellows don't understand where the money gets spent, but it gets spent on a variety of consumables and non-consumable wildlife in the province. We're lucky with the special permit for sheep that augments the amount that's actually spent on sheep, because historically there was some funding for sheep, but this is in addition. So it's more projects to get done, whether they're transplants or whether they're fencing or whether they're just putting radio collars on sheep just to find out what the biologists can determine what their movements are, and it sure helps out in their studies, because unfortunately our federal or provincial government doesn't seem to have as much funding for that type of thing. So that's why sportsmen step up and help out where we possibly can.
Yeah, and I think, Greg, like you sit on that permit on that committee, you and I both represent the Wild Sheep Foundation on it, and it's always been a pleasure doing that work with you. I've enjoyed that, but I think for our listeners, the one thing I want to explain is that there's the permit that sells in Reno. So at Sheep Show, there's the BC Special Minister's permit, and then there's the raffle here in BC, so you can buy the tickets for the residents, right? So there's a resident tag, which is done through the draw, and then there's the one they sell down in Reno. And I think this year, what it sell for $350 US or something? It was good. I think it was over $350. It was a good number anyway.
And 85% of that comes back to the province. There's a portion of it is used for to promote the permit, which is fair enough, because it does bring in big dollars. And it's an auction permit, and it actually has happened where a fellow from British Columbia actually bought it. So it's not just singles out that it's a non-resident permit. It's if you're lucky enough to win the lottery and you want to spend it on a permit like that, go ahead. I think it's great. And then, like you mentioned, Kyle, the fact that you can buy tickets on it, and I actually was involved in the original setting up of the program, working with the ministry on it. That we said it would have to be a portion of that, had to be for residents only. So that's why the ticket part, and a portion of that money is also spent on non-sheep species. So it could be supporting caribou or mule deer or other species. So a portion of it is also not just strictly for sheep. So that was an important part of it too.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to note. The one thing that I hear a lot at the societies is we get criticized, and quite often it comes out of the Kootenays, and guys are saying, well, you guys sell all these permits, you get all this money, it goes to the society, and you don't put enough money back into the Kootenays. And the money doesn't go to the society. As we mentioned, there's the raffle, of course, and then there's the auction tag down in Reno. And that money, like you said, 85% goes to HCTF, which is the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, which gets all the other tag money as well, the HCTF fee there. And they allocate that money, and then we do sit on that committee and help direct the funds. But the money doesn't go to the society, or doesn't go to the, it goes to HCTF, and HCTF decides where the money goes. So I know we get criticized on that quite a bit, and we're like, that's not our decision. That money goes to a committee, and it's decided from there. And a lot of that money does go back in the Kootenays. I know they reinvest in the Kootenays.
In fact, I've noticed the last 5 or 6 years that there's been a real movement to support projects. Now, one of the minor issues, it's a program has to have submissions of valid projects, and generally it's a biologist or somebody that knows how to write up a really good project that gets submitted. So I know there's been clubs out of the Kootenays, for example, the Sparwood group. They hired a biologist and put in a couple of really good projects, and I know we supported those, and we do try and help out in the Kootenays, because you're right, a lot of the funding does come from there. Although recently they've been folks that wanted a stone sheep, so they wait till, and the season is extended, as a lot of people know. It goes into March, so you can, it's an opportunity when the sheep are down from their winter range, or their summer range down to the winter range, that a nice ram can get taken and support in some of those projects. So we've done some quite a few burns up in that area, which help a lot for sheep habitat, because it opens it up for them and a lot of lush growth for them, and that for other species too, not just for sheep. It helps for elk and for a lot of other species that utilize it in that same vicinity.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're giving back. I know you do so much on the conservation end, but then you got to enjoy the permits. So talk about a little bit about your BC Bighorn and how that all came about.
Well, I remember actually when I've been on the special permits committee since it started. First of all, I was representing BC Wildlife Federation, and then I was representing Wild Sheep Foundation, which I still am, and it was sort of indicated, you shouldn't be able to apply because you're on the committee. Well, I thought to myself, no, it is the biologists in British Columbia, the current ones, and the conservation officers and anybody that works for the government can still put in for limited entry. And I know how this limited entry system works. It works on a computer system that does the draw, and it's done by a spontaneous number that's generated by the time when the draw happens. And so the person that writes the program can't predict when the draw is going to happen, and so they can even put in. The person that writes the program can put in, and it's quite valid. They get accused of saying, "Oh, you've rigged it." Well, it isn't rigged, and so there was no reason why in the draw that somebody that happens to be sitting where the money's getting spent couldn't put in. So. In fact, I know, for example, a gentleman that was a biologist, he's retired now, here on Vancouver Island, he put in for an elk draw and got drawn. And I know it wasn't rigged.
Yeah.
But anyways, I guess you get that. People accuse you of possibly doing that, but I know it isn't like that.
Yeah.
So anyways, I put in. So I got lucky enough to get drawn, but I bought a lot of tickets. And so the thing about a special permit like that is, at least in my mind, I went out there the summer before. You got 2 years, right? So well in advance. So I went out the summer before and scouted the area on horses and had a look around just to learn the country a bit. And then the next year, of course, did the same thing, went early. And then when the permit happened was, of course, when the general season, it extended for several months after the general season. So I went early again when the regular season was on. And then once I think it's the 25th of October, the season for the regular season was over there in the Kootenays, and started to do lots of spotting. And the amazing part about it, I was really impressed. The local hunters that are out there still maybe hunting deer, or I can't remember whether elk were open or not at the time, but I know there's quite a few guys that are out looking for deer. They'd want to help you, and they recognized they could be part of it just to help do the spotting. So I had quite a little entourage of guys that would come out every morning, and they were hunting themselves for deer, but they also were spotting sheep, and they were saying some of the fellows, they'd actually work on the mines where you're not allowed to hunt, and they knew what sheep were there. And if I remember one time in particular, I was halfway up the mountain, and we were hiking up because we had a possibility of some rams we wanted to look at closer. And my phone vibrated, and what the heck? And here it was a fellow that he was at work, and he said, "Don't be shooting any small ones." He says, "There's a big one just left the mine." Of course, it was a long ways away from where we were. By the time I got down, I did have a situation it worked out really well. We're sitting in the valley bottom, and I'm spotting. We're at 5,600 feet, I think it was, in the valley bottom, and in my pickup. And got the spotting scope on the window, of course, and looking up at the sheep way up on top at 8,600 feet. And a ram came out on the road, right beside the pickup. And it was a buck ram. And I thought to myself, oh, no, I don't want this to happen. This is. And I got out of the truck, and the sheep was not legal when it was on the road. And I thought, well, that's good, because that's not the experience I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I took a picture of it, and it walked down the road, and I thought, if you go off, I believe it was, I can't remember the distance, I think it's 75 meters off each side. I thought, then he's going to be legal, then I got to make a decision. I thought, I don't want to have to do this. And he never left the road. He walked right back onto the mine, which was not legal, eh?
Yeah.
So, and I never lifted the rifle. I had my rifle with me, and my partner says, boy, he says, a lot of guys would have taken that ram right there. And he says, that would have been on Facebook within minutes. And I thought, I wasn't even thinking of that. I just was happy that it didn't happen. Instead, I was so much pleased. A few days later, I think it was about another week later, I hiked all the way to the top of the mountain and got one right up to 8,600 or 8,700 feet, and had a great hunt. Yeah, it was it was a buck ram, and not high buck, but it was getting really cold. It was late November, and I knew the forecast was going to get really bad. So I thought I better take a ram while I got a good opportunity. I'd been there a month and hunted every day hard, and made 7 trips to the top. Because you generally only go when you see a good ram. You go, but by the time you get up there, it's give you the slip or whatever. So I ended up getting a nice ram, that made buck. So yeah, it's in Boone and Crockett. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking around the room here, and there's lots of plaques and lots of accolades and records. And yeah, you've killed a lot of big animals, but it's not just sheep. There's a beautiful elk, beautiful moose, just all kinds of stuff. And so, well, I guess Roosevelt elk, that's pretty close to home for you. How's that experience been for you?
Well, it is, and I guess besides sheep, I guess it's my favorite. Well, it'd be hard to say which is. I got involved in our Courtney fishing game back in 1985, and at that time we were doing a lot of transplants. Our club was just invited by the biologists out of Nanaimo, and our Courtney club was invited to assist in translocating Roosevelt elk. on Vancouver Island. Of course, I jumped in on the occasion right away, and it was chairing the committee, and it was all by phone in those days. You phone people and to organize things. There was no internet or anything, and so you organized it at meetings and whatnot. And I remember we had a phone list and whatnot. And out of Elk Meadows Farm, which is just out of Campbell River, there was quite a population of elk, and it was just outside of Campbell River, and so the ministry got us to put up a corral trap, and we started trapping them, and we moved twice on Vancouver Island. We moved them south of Courtney and put them into an area where we hoped they would go back up in the Beaufort Range. Some did, but a lot, they were used to being in and around, housing and these farms, and they came right down into Union Bay in some cases. I was getting phone calls from people saying that darn elk are in there wrecking my lawn and whatnot. It was quite it's quite a good project. The funny part about it, I found, was some gentlemen, they'd phone me up and say, "This is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this," especially transplanting them off Vancouver Island, because we in 1987 and 88 we sent 30 animals over to Seashell.
Okay.
And we trapped them in Campbell River. There was a small group that came out of Fanny Bay because they were a bit of an issue there. They'd moved down into below the old inland highway, the old highway, and were a problem, so we trapped them there. And I think it was 29 in particular that we moved. I'll say 30, but the biologist I checked with, he said no, it was 29. And those animals done extremely well over there. There was no elk left on the Seashell Peninsula. And in that Region 2, there was a few in Lockbrill Inlet. They talked about it, but nobody really hunted them. There was no hunting season for them. And the biologist said they thought there was a small remnant herd there. But out of that 29 animals, there's over, I was using the number 1,600. But I just was reading an article actually in BC Outdoors, and it's over 2,000 now that are in Region 2.
In that Seashell area and Sunshine Coast.
Well, Daryl Reynolds, who's the biologist over there, after we put them there, they started becoming a bit of an issue on golf courses, and we went over. I remember a bunch of us from our club here went to help them set up the first corral trap. We set it right up on a golf course, actually, to trap them on the fairway to try and alleviate their problem, and they moved them into Powell River and moved them throughout different drainages, which is really positive. But looking back, some fellows, some hunters would phone me up and say, "This is ridiculous. You're taking our elk off Vancouver Island." I said, "Well, first of all, we don't own them." I said, if the province or the country owns them. Yeah. And I said, it's the right thing to do. I said, if we ever had a disease go through Vancouver Island, we've got a gene population that we can go after over in Region 2 and bring them back. Well, that'll never happen. Yeah, I said, I hope it never does. And he said, but it's the correct thing to do. And I said, one day there'll be a limited entry over there. And of course, back in mid-'80s, 1980s, there was none over there. Well, that'll never happen. Well, you look now how many limited entries draws there is over in Region 2. There's a significant number. Yeah. I think it's over 100. Yeah. And so those are folks that aren't applying on Vancouver Island where I like to apply, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it's a real positive thing. So I've, over the years, I've enjoyed just helping somebody else out. If somebody finds a draw, gets a draw that which is cherished, because it's, as a lot of people know, it's 100 to 1 odds generally, and depends where you apply. But you go and help spot, and you can do everything but pull the trigger, and just enjoy the trip, right? Mm-hmm. And help them out, and they get their animal, and so we do that. Yeah, we do enjoy having the permit.
Well, you're saying this year that you didn't really have anyone that you knew that had any draws, so you and a friend of yours were going to go do some photography work, and you were going to go hunt the elk with the camera and get. Well,
exactly that. For the last 2 years, we've had friends that have contacted us right away, said, "Hey, we got a draw," and I said, "Oh, perfect. We can go help you." So it was a gentleman last year was from the Kootenays. Cologne area that had a nice draw, and him and his son, it was his son that had the draw. He'd been putting in since he was 12, and I think he was 22, and he got drawn, which is good after 10 years. And we helped him out. We had a really good time. But this year, nothing. So I said, we can go and do this. We can go and have fun. We just do everything but pull the trigger. You get to go and have fun, taking pictures and just enjoying calling them and whatnot. But this year, as it turns out, a couple of fellas, they did actually touch base with us. So we're gonna help them spot and hopefully we can get them in position to get their animal. Just because it takes eyes out there. You can't be everywhere. So if you can spot a herd, then you can recommend. And that's what happened last year. I spotted a nice herd of. There was a nice bull and some cows that were out late in the evening, and we went back, told the other fellow, said, I think we better get back there in the morning. Well, be darned if they weren't there still. And so they were very happy that we helped them out just to spot that herd, right? So yeah, it's enjoyable, and yet the thing I really enjoy about a lot of the species, all the species in British Columbia, the biologists do a real good job in their conservation efforts. They don't allow too many permits out there. And Roosevelt elk is a super example. Like they keep it down for minimum amount of harvest, and the population's increasing. So it's been beneficial. I think in total, it's 150 animals have been involved in moving on Vancouver Island.
That's phenomenal. So when you do the traps, like you guys just run up like some squeeze fencing that runs them into a place where you can load them into a trailer and you haul them out, like when they're like, I guess in the wintertime when they don't have their antlers and stuff. Is that how you do it? Or?
Well, yeah. Originally, we started with the biologist out in Nanaimo, the elk biologist and the chief biologist in Region 1, they knew, in their studies about elk transplants and whatnot. So we would build a wooden 2x6 rough lumber corral out of sections that we could bolt together or actually band together. And we'd make a fairly large enclosure and, of course, bait them in. And back in the days, it was pretty simple. We had a real simple trip system. We had a gate with a held open on a system that it was actually a real basic system. It was a set of car points that were and a plastic strip between them and a wire leading to a place that the first elk got to the far end of the corral. Generally a lead cow would get out there to the far end and would trip a wire, and it would pull the piece of plastic out between the car points, and the electrical connection would open a solenoid that would release the gate. That's a bucket of rocks is closing, and we had a latch system that would slam the gate, and you sort of got what you got. I mean, there was no picking or choosing, right? So sometimes you'd get 5 or 6 animals, sometimes you get 10 or 15, right? And I think 16 was the biggest we ever got. I think in Nanaimo we did a transplant just south of Nanaimo, but now modern systems, they use a metal fence, which is way lighter to deal with, and easier to assemble. And we have the amazing part about it was, again, from experience, we'd have another chute that leads into where the truck is, where you're going to transport them. And it was a confined area, and you could get about 3 animals in this small enclosure, and the biologist of the day wanted to use a cattle squeeze so he could bring the cow into the particular area. He could do his biological studies, take blood samples, and they could put an ear tag on and put a radio collar on, but they wanted to do it in a cattle squeeze. So we'd have trouble getting them through this cattle squeeze. They just did not want to go. And so we'd have a group of volunteers there, and we had a rope, and I could get above the animals because you can climb up the fence real easy, and you're 10 feet above them. And I remember there was 2 cows in this one particular time, and a calf in this real small area, so they're quite confined. We'd open the gate there, and we used 10 people we used plywood shields, we call them, just a piece of plywood that's 2 feet wide and 8 feet high, and you'd make a wall, and you'd force them into this area, and then shut the gate, right? And we're above them, and I threw a rope around the neck of this one cow, and we're trying to drag it through, and the rope tightened up and started choking the cow, and she collapsed, and she's laying in the bottom of this small confined area with another cow standing beside her and this calf, and I'm up above, and I'm thinking, we got to release this. I mean, nobody could reach in to release the rope. So I'm going to go down there. and I'm going to get kicked, and I'm probably going to get bit, or something's going to happen, but I'm going to do it. So I get down there, and I'm standing right beside this cow, like she's right there with a foot away from me. And she's not biting me, she's not kicking me, she's just standing there. And I grabbed the rope and released it, and the cow stood up. And I got 2 cows and a calf right with me, and I'm bodied into the, they're not doing anything to me. And I'm thinking, hey, this is pretty simple. So I said to the biologist, hey, pass me that radio collar. I'll put it on for you while I'm here. So I put it around her neck, and of course she's just fading away a little bit, just trying to move her neck, but she couldn't move very far because the wall's right there. And I put the collar on, did the screws up. I said, what else you want done in here? So they realized that, hey, these animals they're not vicious.
Yeah.
They don't kick you. They don't bite you, and you can stand right beside them. So we got rid of the cattle squeeze. We said, heck with that, because that's just, it's not positive. And we got him into the truck. And after that, the biologist realized that, hey, you could walk right inside the truck with the cattle. With the elk. And the only problem he had is if he had a bull. So one time, the first time we did the first transplant to Seashelt, we had a 6-point bull it was in March, early March, and they still hadn't lost their antlers. And so the biologist had his tranquilizer gun, and he tranquilized it, and it went down, and then we went in and sawed off with a hacksaw. We sawed off his antlers, and then gave him the antidote, and he got back up again, feeling a little lightheaded. But he was a really good bull, and that's part of that transplant that went over there. And I remember working over there for some of the projects I had, and I remember seeing a couple of big bulls. So I was quite pleased to see that we sent over a good gene pool that developed. There's some nice bulls that come out of there. I see pictures of fellows that have taken some really good ones. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was really positive. And so nowadays with the elk transplants, with the modern systems, the biologist sits in a vehicle with his laptop, and they got an electronic way of tripping the gate now, so he can count the number of animals that go in and pick out how many they need for a particular for wherever they're moving them, and then slam the gate shut with electronically, right? And what we've done, they've discovered that for why it happens, you'd think they'd be more wild. We open the gate up, we bring the truck in the dark, generally, bring the cattle truck in, open the gate up and have the chute ready to go, and leave it wide open and just leave them alone. They'll walk it back and forth, and they'll go into the truck by themselves.
Wow.
And they'll come out. Then they'll walk back in again. And then when they're all in there, you go and shut the door.
That's crazy.
It's nuts, but it's less stress on them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And one time we did lose an animal. I remember it was moving out of Kelsey Bay area, and we had 13 elk, and the driver of the truck, he's passed away now, unfortunately. But anyways, he came to me. He says, "I'm not moving these." He says, "There's 13. It's unlucky." And I said, "No, and I had to talk him out of it, eh?" And so we moved them over to Namint, is where they went, over to Port Alberni.
Yeah.
And one died. He said, I told you this is and he rubbed that in for quite a while. But whatever.
Yeah.
He was superstitious, and he didn't want to move the 13. But they did go over there. But one did, and it was stress myopsia, according to the biologist. There was just too much noise, too much chainsaw work. We were cutting, wood to do the fitting and to ramp and whatnot. And he said, and there was too many people.
Right.
And that's what the biologist said. It was stress myopsia that they just couldn't take it. So we changed our pattern of way to do things and stay away, like just bring the truck in the dark, open the gate, and they'll walk in themselves, and less stress on them. And so they've had a lot of success moving them. And it's been a real super, program for having elk all over Vancouver Island. Yeah.
And are they still doing a lot today, or is it slowed down?
Not as much as they were. The funding's not as there. We had that special permit for. It was after the sheep permit for the premier sheep permit. We decided that it would really be good to do it for elk, and it was running for quite a few seasons, and that's where most of the funding was going for the transplants in Region 2 for Darrell Reynolds, and because it all costs money. To move them, because there's cost of the truck and transport them. And especially over there, they were doing a lot by barges and whatnot. They'd load the truck on a barge and then take it up a drainage, various inlets in Region 2 and release them on the beach. We did a number out of Gold River. There was a bunch that were right within the town area of Gold River, and there were a problem. We transplanted them up in up the Mushlet, across in one of the inlets up there. I rode along on the barge that time. It was quite an interesting thing. We just drove the truck off the barge and up the road a little ways and let them go, and they've created a nice herd there in a new area that they wouldn't be able to get access to very easily because of the mountain ranges and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
And they like just a semi truck? Is that what like?
No, it's a cattle truck. It's
cattle truck,
just
okay.
Generally they use it for moving their basically the cattle to wherever they have to take them. Yeah.
Not a liner though. It's just kind of
it'll hold about really stretching it at 15 animals if you can.
Right.
They're generally in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 is what you do get. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the other orgs that you're. I've had the opportunity to work with you on the Big Game Records of BC through that organization, doing great work. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with.
The Big Game Records Club. Basically, we take the animals, whichever are taken. There's a minimum according to Boone and Crockett, of course, what the scoring system is, and a lot of fellows like to get them measured up to see what the score is and whatnot. And so we do that as a volunteer group. There's scorers throughout British Columbia that are registered with the BC Big Game Records Club, and then they're submitted, and then we tabulate them all, and they get by the score, of course, and they're listed. And I've been doing it for quite some time now, getting on 50 years here. I've been only involved in the last 10 to 12 years, but it's a good organization. The biologists like it in the fact that they can keep an eye on what's big game are taken out of the province, and whether the population has dropped off. They'll notice that there's less animals being submitted, and so it gives them assistance that way too. You see a lot of the studies, they'll refer to it. And a lot of fellows enjoy doing it. It's not expensive to submit an application. Every 3 years we have a awards program where the top 2 animals of each of the species is given a special award. We just did one last year in Cranbrook, and a couple coming up here it'll be 2026. Yeah, we have another one, and so it's a good way of supervising what game is taken, and even ones that aren't making the book, they're still listed, and you can keep tabulation on it, and so it's a conservative group that enjoys doing it, and quite valuable for biologists and for your own peace of mind of what you're working towards getting a mature animal. Yeah.
Well, and I never really understood it, and I did a podcast with Justin Spring, who at the time was with Boone and Crockett.
Oh, yeah.
He's gone to Pope and Young now, and yeah, like these records are if you look at Boone and Crockett, this is they're over 100 years old, and we've got these records that date back for history, and you can see where they came from because you have the location and so the population trends, and you can see disease. There's so much data there, and they're there for perpetuity, and it's just a great way for everyone thinks it's about the record book and about getting your name in the book, and sure, that's part of it, but the role these records play for like you said, wildlife managers, and just to see, and I it's fascinating to me. I love grabbing those old books and going back and look through, seeing what was killed in 40, 50 years ago when the record started.
That's right. And we raise a little bit of funds. We don't raise huge dollars. When we have our awards banquet, we have a silent auction and a live auction and some raffles and whatnot. And this year we raised pretty good money, so we're using that for conservation purposes. And one of the things we're quite concerned about is this. Unfortunately, they've had a couple cases of this chronic wasting disease has come into the Kootenays, and unfortunately, the ministry doesn't seem to have a lot of funds. They spend it on other things in the province besides wildlife, and so we were augmenting the biologist program to analyze it and get studies going on and find out how bad the system is. So they're doing a lot of checking for chronic wasting disease by submitting heads and whatnot. I know I've hunted in Alberta and I've submitted heads there. Fortunately, the mule deer I've taken there have been they've been positive, or negative, I should say. They haven't had the disease, and it's good to know that when you're going to consume it yourself too. So I've submitted heads there. So hopefully, fellows will get on board there and do that, because it's a real worry. Because there's no cure for it at this point. Hopefully they can come up with something, because it's significant in eastern Canada and in the States, and we're trying to keep it out of the province. That's why the rule is on transporting, big game heads. Out of Alberta, you have to bleach the skulls and whatnot before you can move them. And it's a real worry. Plus, there's other conservation projects that we can help in. Yeah, so the Big Game Records Club is another tool that we can use. It goes along with, there's some good programs that are run by Wild Sheep Society too. Of course, they're doing significant work, and I'm really pleased to be a member of that and support it, so we can do a lot of the projects, whether they're transplants of sheep or fire burning or fencing or whatever is required in the day. There's a problem with sheep in the Fraser Canyon, and that's a real worry. They get that myopsy disease, and it's unfortunately we have to take out some of the animals that are affected by it just to try and save the ones that aren't affected. Again, it's all for, hopefully we can put more sheep on the mountain so that we can do it forever. And
yeah, absolutely, for that next generation and the generation after that and so forth.
Well, and then the Wild Sheep Foundation, which is an North American outfit, but it's generally the conventions in the States, but they do send a lot of money into Canada, into British Columbia especially for sheep, and into Alberta, where there's good populations.
Yeah, I just they're just wrapped up their grant aid, and I don't want to spill the beans. That's their story to tell, but I do know the society was a beneficiary. Again, a bunch of our projects received grant aid funding from the Wild Sheep Foundation, and they put a lot of money in the province here. They're by far our biggest partner with the society, and a lot of investment in British Columbia, so it's pretty cool. And yeah, so definitely a great relationship there, and doing a lot of good things for wild sheep.
Speaking of Alberta, I was lucky enough, my good friend there, he said you should start putting in other provinces and other states, so I was putting in for 22 years, and I got drawn in Alberta, and I had a great hunt, wonderful hunt. We took my oldest grandson, and we had horses, and I hired an outfitter. Had a fabulous trip. We saw 96 sheep, only a handful of rams. None of them were what I'd like to put the bar a little higher. Like the odd time you might make a mistake, as long as it's legal and you think, it's bigger than the one you got. But I'm kind of an advocate of, if you got a ram, just try and raise the bar, pass up the ones that are not as big as the one you've already got, right? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find a big one. I had a wonderful time. And it's good that you can go to other provinces, and at least in Alberta you can. And you have to have a hunter host or a guide. So I got a guide, and it was a wonderful time. Yeah, it was only 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
But this one here I got is pretty good ram, and it was going to be a tall order to get a big one.
Do they shoot rams in that area, like where you got drawn? Would you get a 185 class ram in that area?
There is a 185 rams there, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, they're not behind every tree.
No.
But I saw one that was 3/4 curl, but it wasn't anywhere near what the one I got. It's over 180.
Yeah.
I actually have a pickup set of horns.
Is that these right here? I seen those. What's that's just a giant. What's the story on
192? That? Yeah.
Wow, where's that from?
Not allowed to tell you.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Anyways, I was hoping I'd like to get a cape and mount it,
right,
and classify it as a pickup, not
right,
that I shot it.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the fact that it could be be a beautiful mount.
Yeah. It is a giant, and you got a lot of big stuff in this room, like and stuff from all over the world, like chamois and very cool stuff out of Africa, and just a very. I know you've been hunting a lot of ibex lately too. Have you gotten your ibex? So what do they call it? Ibex.
Well, they
slam
call it
or-
ibex slam. Yeah. No, if you go to Spain, there's four different ibex you can hunt. I've got two of them. I got a Grados and a Bissetti. There's a Ronda and a Southeastern also, but and I do have another ibex. I got it out of Turkey. It's a Bajor ibex, and
Nice.
I generally I've been buying them a lot at different auctions, and the part I like about buying them at auction is a lot of the money goes to the group, whether it's Wild Sheep Foundation or it's Dallas Safari or whatever. The money spent on conservation, right?
Yeah.
So the outfitters from around the world donate a hunt to promote their area. Plus, they generally know that you're going to possibly take another animal. I was lucky enough to get drawn. I put in during COVID, Wild Sheep Foundation had everything was virtual, and so I phoned up the office and said I would like to buy a number of tags, and so they took my credit card number and they just tell me what you want, and so I just checked them off, and I picked Mouflon in Spain, so I got drawn for 2 Mouflon.
Oh.
So I took a young friend who actually I got him his first deer when he was he's same age as my son, and he's into got into hunting in a big way, and so we went over and we each got we decided to take a a Bissetti ibex.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good to move around. I was recently went to New Zealand again. I bought a hunt at one of the shows and went over to New Zealand. Great place to hunt there, and got some great. They're the taxidermists now.
Well, that red stag is just insane. That was just a giant. What did it score?
It's 462.
It's just sick. And so it's not. Are you getting a shoulder mount done, or what are you getting done with that? Are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing a shoulder mount like this one.
Yeah.
I made these pedestals.
Yeah.
I like woodworking, and so I made a pedestal, and so I'm the same as the elk. I'll have it beside it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. This room is just sets like it. You've got a proper setting for it, and then. I love your elk. It's out, it's got the greenery in the background. You got a picture window here. It's perfect, Greg. And with that red stag in here, it's going to be insane.
And the deer I got, they're not the biggest in the world, but I enjoyed the hunt and got a nice whitetail out of Saskatchewan and a mule deer out of Gang Ranch area, above Gang Ranch. It was a lot of people used to hunt Gang Ranch, but it's closed now. It's a private area now. It's a farm. I think. They get special permission to get on there. Went to Arizona and got a coos deer, which are really hard to get. They're very elusive, and I thought it was desert hunting. It was going to be on the flat. It was in the mountains, desert mountains. It was like they call it the poor man's sheep hunt.
Okay, yeah.
And it is like sheep hunting.
Yeah,
they're very elusive and not easy to harvest. I got lucky and. Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty buck. Like, just beautiful. Just your classic coos. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not experienced in it, but it's just it got a couple little stickers and just a beautiful little, and just I love. Did Craig do that mount or who did that mount? Yeah, it's beautiful.
Sorry, no, that was actually. Yes, I got it done down in Arizona.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, like an excuse, I could drive the wife down with the trailer and go pick it up.
Yeah, good holiday.
I got relatives that are in Arizona, anyways, and they winter down there, so we got to visit them and
right on.
whatnot. Yeah.
Well, that whitetail, like the bases on that whitetail, like talk about Coke can bases, right? You hear that, or pop bottle bases or whatever, and those truly are like I don't know what those bases. I don't know if you measured them, but that's just insane. Like. Yeah. How thick he is at the bases. It looks
actually. He was fighting with another one. It was, and it was quite the hunt. Yeah,
that's crazy.
I bought that at a DU. I support Ducks Unlimited Canada, and I'm not actually a waterfowler to speak of. I've hunted waterfowl in the past, and we'll do it again. But I'm not an avid waterfowler, where a lot of guys are. I'm more of a big game hunter, but do enjoy the organization as far as protecting wetlands, and so they raise a lot of money. A lot of money for Ducks Unlimited Canada comes from the States, from Ducks Unlimited Inc., which is the American side of Ducks Unlimited. They recognize that a lot of the the habitat for raising ducks is in Canada, in the prairie potholes, and then of course in the boreal up in the north. So they send a lot of money to Canada to augment the populations, and of course they fly south, and it's a real success story for the amount of, as people know, there's actually, as we know, there's a lot of Canada geese around it, sometimes too many, right? And, hard to control them, but it is a positive thing that they're a good population. Yeah.
Well, and you sit on the Ducks Unlimited board, don't you?
Yeah, I
nationally
volunteer and national director. So, coming up here, I got to go to Toronto in October, late October, to next board meeting. And we fund our own way to those meetings. So we it's not like a board. Some boards, they get paid to with travel and we pay for everything, so the money's going on the ground. It's a good cause, right?
Yeah.
And it's like Wild Sheep Society. The board there is not funded. It's they do it strictly as volunteers, and that's positive. Yeah. And so it's something that I really enjoy doing, and my wife appreciates it. She enjoys the wild game meat. We always have lots, and I like distributing it with the family, and a lot of people, they appreciate it. They recognize it as quite healthy to have. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, Greg, like you got involved like in your local club, which kind of makes sense. Like it's your local community. And I think that's a great place to start for people. And, people end up on national boards, which you did as well. But did you your progression, like you got involved in Courtenay here, like you said, but then did you end up getting, like, I think you served on the BCWF board, the Wild Sheep Society BC board. You've done the work for WSF as a volunteer on the special sheep permit. Obviously, Big Game Records of BC, Big Game Records Club of BC now. Did that just kind of like there's an opportunity, you see a need to help and support, or is it kind of you're like no I really like the work they're doing here and I want to help out and see this club get going, or how do you get from that local club in Courtenay to being on the national board of ducks, especially not even as identifying as a waterfowler as well? I know you just said why you're there and it makes sense, but how did that progression happen for you?
Well, again, when I first started my business, I was too busy I didn't even hunt. I know several years I didn't even hunt local Vancouver Island deer, just no time. And I got into middle life and joined the Courtenay Fish and Game and became president fairly quickly and enjoyed that and helping out with our the conservation projects we had. And it's a good social group and we would raise money and donate it for to BC Wildlife Federation and to other organizations to do enhancement for fish and for wildlife. And I got approached to actually sit on the regional board of BC Wildlife Federation, which is Region 1. So I went to a lot of the meetings and then was president there for several years, and then was a director got asked to become a director at BC Wildlife Federation, so served to that for several years, and then got approached to run for vice president, which I did for 5 years, and then treasurer for 5 years. So I was, on the board, on the executive board, and traveling with that quite a bit, and it was. But they do a lot of good conservation work, and not only for fish and wildlife, but also for shooting sports too. Defend, the shooting opportunity in Canada. Mm-hmm. I think as long as we've got reasonable firearms laws in Canada for, I believe, and safe lockup is a good positive thing, and I support most of them. I mean, there's a few little silly things that I know some of the federal government has brought in that I just shake my head. Like my wife, for example, when it was required, you had to have they were required you have a possession acquisition license, mm-hmm. or possession only license, it only cost $10, and I bought my wife one of those to keep her from becoming a criminal. Because if you didn't have one, you could be charged under the criminal code, right? And that doesn't make sense to me. Why? I asked the minister one time. I said, "What other laws in Canada can you comply with by buying a $10 license and not become a criminal?" Right? There's nothing. Right? Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
And my point was, like, she's got her hunting license. She's not active at wanting to shoot. Like, she did get a draw one time for a moose, and I said, "Oh, great, you can come with us, and it would be great to have you along." "Well, I don't know if I can take one." So I said, "Well, I guess it's not going to die then, because I'm not doing it for you." And so I didn't put her in again for limited entry. But she does enjoy going. She's going with me this year.
Yeah.
We don't have a draw this year. We're going scouting and look at country, and if one immature happens to get in the way, well, we'll possibly take it, right?
Right.
But it'll be just a great. There's 3 couples going, so it'd be kind of a fun trip. We'll get a few grouse and whatnot, see the country. Yeah. But she appreciates the natural meat and whatnot. It's good, wholesome natural meat, and I distribute it, like I say, to family and friends that appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, as you know, Melanie, my wife, she's getting into it now too. So it's
that's great. Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. So we got a pronghorn hunt this in a couple weeks, and then hopefully come up and meet up with you guys. We'll have I got her tags all sorted out here, so she'll have some blacktail tags, and hopefully we can find a animal for her to take this fall. It'll be great. So
yeah, unfortunately, our blacktail population has dwindled on Vancouver Island. I believe it's the cause of many. It's just this one thing. It caused it. It's a variety of different causes, because it used to be fabulous, and it just not like it used to be. In the urban areas, there's lots of them, but I don't hunt the urban areas. I'm not an archer, and I don't like using a shotgun. I got beautiful deer in my yard.
Yeah.
But I enjoy seeing them. Yeah,
for sure.
But I was hoping that somehow we can get the population back up to where it was. But yeah, I do find that you get off the island to go mule deer hunting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Greg, I really appreciate you taking the time today. I know we could sit here and I could talk to you I knew this was going to happen, that we just scratch the surface and then want to keep going, but maybe we break it up into another one and come back and we chat more next time. But no, it's appreciate all you do, and I guess having the opportunity of worked with you with the Big Game Records Club of BC. I guess a couple things that we got the books are out. The 8th edition I think are out now, and
8th are out. Yeah.
There's some limited edition books left. I think we're up to number 52 or 53, so those are pretty cool. I've got 1 or 2 of those myself that I've gotten, and so people can go to the website to check that out. And then of course we're always trying to grow the membership of the organization as well. So
and we got a good program. You can get a single membership, or there's a 3-year membership. Is probably a lot of folks buy those 3 years because they're the advantage there. But you get a life membership or a platinum membership, so it's then you're done. And it's good to help out the cause and support the organization.
Yeah,
and we're finding quite a few are joining up that way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great, and the books are. I think you can you even get still first edition books? I know there's a few that are sold out, but
there's a few. It's pretty hard to get a first edition.
Right.
I've got a stock of some 5th and 6th, but if there's somebody who really wants to get the full variety, I know there's directors that might have some books that we could free up.
Yeah. It's great, great books, and they're beautiful. We got that picture. What's the cover photo? Brogan Didier did that.
Caribou.
That caribou. It's absolutely stunning, and just a beautiful photo on that 8th edition book. So that one's gorgeous.
And we're always looking for new scores. The program, how it works, Boone and Crockett will. You have to be an official Boone and Crockett scorer to do the official measuring. A lot of the times you have to go to the States to Missoula or whatever to get the course, which isn't cheap, but a lot of guys who do it. We attempt to try and have a provincial one if we get enough fellows that are showing interest, so we could get the the instructors to come to British Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it depends on the area. We got scores in various areas, and some places there's not many, and some places there's quite a few, so it depends. But if they express an interest, just get a hold of us. The website is easy to find, Big Game Record Club of British Columbia. And also, that would be, good to have that opportunity. Also, new directors that are available. We're mainly located right now around Courtney Campbell River, this area, because it's nice to have a group that you don't have to travel too far. Our president right now is in Victoria, so we're quite a bit on Vancouver Island, but we've got a few directors that are one in Prince George and one out in the Kootenays. We try to do it by conference call sometimes and not a lot of meetings. We have 2 or 3 a year, and just to keep things flowing nicely and make sure that everything's functioning properly. I serve as a secretary right now, and it's an interesting job, and compile what happened in the meetings and whatnot. And it's another great organization, and I suggest most hunters should be involved in a conservation organization, because it's what you really like to do, and you're just building on your own sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, absolutely. And then I guess too, anyone that wants to get their stuff scored, they can go to the website, and it's got a list of the scores, and there's pretty much someone in every region across the province.
Yeah,
multiple guys and sort of spread across the province, so that you probably find someone fairly close to you if you want to get your stuff scored, and then you can either get it. They're official B&C, so you get it in the B&C book and in our book too.
That's
well.
right. Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. So, yeah. Well, it's great, Greg. Well, I appreciate your time today. It was a lot of fun, and I got lots more questions, but we'll save it for next time.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Kyle. It's great chatting with you, and appreciate the work that you're doing for us.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.